Alright, have you ever had an injury that prevented you from running, jumping, walking? Yeah. Have you tried everything possible to get rid of that injury, but just couldn't?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to get back in the game? Being able to treat and prevent your own injuries could save you a lot of money and the trip to the doctor's office. I'm actually credible because I've been an athlete for 8 years and I've been only injured twice, and I've learned throughout these years how to take care of my body, and as well I want to give you all knowledge about injuries. Injuries can cost a lot of money and also ruin an athlete's life, season. First, I'm going to talk about how you can prevent an injury. Secondly, I'm going to talk about how what you could do if you think you have an injury. And lastly, I'm going to talk about what you could do if you have an injury. Oh, I'm sorry. So that's my intro. Okay. Preventing an injury. There are so many ways you can get injured by playing a sport. You can prevent an injury by making sure your body is ready before you do an activity. Make sure you jog before you do an activity. Never perform an activity if your muscles are cold. And if you don't, then there is a good likelihood that you will be injured. Try not to overdo your workout, and if you do, stretch a lot. Stretching is very important. No one has ever gotten stronger in one day, so patience is key. Always remember to stretch again. Your muscles is like a rubber band, and what happens when you keep on stretching and stretching and stretching? Exactly, it's gonna snap. So the same thing with your muscles. A good stretch is stretching within 15 through 30 seconds. So I just spoke about how you can prevent an injury, and now I'm going to talk about what should you do if you think you have an injury. So knowing what to do. An athlete's body feels different when you practice or participate in a sport. So the things an athlete should look for. Mary L. Galvin, MD, from kidshealth.org in 2005, says an injury results in swelling, numbness, intense pain, tenderness, stiffness, loss of flexibility, and it should be taken very seriously. If you continue to play, even if you are in pain, during your activity which causes swelling, limping, or loss of range of motion, you should see a doctor as soon as possible. You should always be honest with yourself if you do feel pain. You should always consult with your parents, your friend, your closest friend, and you should also be honest with yourself if you're hurt. Most athletes ignore the feelings and keep on playing. Very bad choice. It'll actually make you really worse. Even if you're injured, and if it isn't a big deal, still get it checked. Sometimes you don't know what's the difference between sore and chronic pain. Soreness, it lasts for a couple of days, but chronic pain could last for a longer time. So I just told you what to do if you think you're injured, and now I'm going to tell you what to do if you are injured. How to treat an injury. Has anyone ever heard the term RICE? No? Yes? Okay. Well, RICE is a term that I use, and I don't know if other athletes use too. Well, RICE, it stands for R, which stands for rest, I, which stands for ice, C, which stands for compression, and E, which stands for elevation. So if you're injured, make sure you rest, and it's very important to rest. Icing is important, which decreases pain, and you should ice for 20 minutes every hour after an injury. Compression is also an effective tool. You just wrap tape or an elastic, which provides compression to injured areas, which help minimize inflammation. Elevation is also important, which helps reduce swelling, and if you're injured, and should be elevated above the level of the heart, especially during icing and compression applications. Once you are fully healed, then you could get back to playing the game that you love. Injuries can cost a lot of money and can ruin an athlete's season. First, I told you how to prevent an injury, then I told you what you should do if you think you're getting injured, and lastly, I'll explain what you can do to treat your injury. In closing, everyone hates injuries. Take care of your body, and you won't have to deal with them as much.